Well, good morning. It still is morning. I think the last time I checked, I still think it's maybe October. Who knows? I'm still in this room. It's really good to see some familiar faces. Thanks for joining us today for our TAO sales community event, Keeping Up with Change. I am joined by the one and only incomparable Justin Martinez, supporting us on the back end of this. And we are sort of market testing with our sales folks who we know are also experimenting with different ways to keep folks engaged. We've practiced using a presentation like this once before. It did foster a ton of conversation. And so I'm going to put into practice something that is hard for me and feels really awkward, I think, for everybody else in the Zoom room, that when we get to the point where I ask a question, if I don't pause for 10 seconds to let people respond, then it's just me talking at y'all. So I'll take a breath, I'll count to 10, and we should have some really interesting interactions. So I would like my co-chairs to take a minute and say hello. I see Angie first, so I'm going to have her introduce herself and who she works for.
Thank you. Super excited to be here. Hey guys, Angie Gonzalez, and I am with ForcePoint, a cybersecurity company focusing on data security and keeping it all tight. But excited to be one of the co-chairs on the sales community here with TAO and my amazing counterparts, but live up here in Beaverton, Oregon. And this is a topic that we deal with every single day, is how to keep people engaged and what's happening with the changes. So I'm excited about this one today.
Awesome, thank you. And then I'm going to go alphabetically, but I should have started with Andre. So Andre.
Hi, everyone. My name is Andre Petit. I'm CEO and founder of Fundamental Fitness Labs. We're in the prevention side of healthcare, teaching people, educating people on how to actually get from where they are to where they want to be. And I'm super excited. I've been in sales my entire adult life. So I'm just really excited to be in this group and just learn from folks, because obviously we all can learn from each other, and the more sharing, the more we all learn. So I'm happy to be here. And as I said, this is obviously a very timely topic. So look forward to having the conversation.
And then Paige.
Yes. Hello. Hi, everyone. I am Paige Lakin. I am business development alt-source software. It is a custom software developer here in Portland, basically focused primarily on digital transformation, digital innovation for a lot of the industrial markets, a lot of the retail and the freight industries that consume our area and that we thrive off of, but pretty much anything and everything. We like to say, if you can dream it, we can build it. So that's where I'm hailing from. And yeah, I think this is going to be a great conversation. Change is always a factor in sales. So should be a good one.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Now I'm going to do the thing that I know can sometimes stress Justin out a little bit, but I'm going to go down through the chat. I'm going to call somebody's names. I'm only going to do a 5-second pause this time and let you unmute and at least say your name and the company you are with, because I love knowing who we have here. And I think this is good practice to get us muting and unmuting, which still seems to be a challenge 19 months into this fun scenario. So, Jim.
I'm not sure if it's Jim K or not, Kara, but how you doing?
Good. It's you, Jim K. Go for it.
Awesome. This is Jim K with Sales Acceleration. Good morning, everyone.
Thanks, Jim. All right, Allison, it's nice to see you.
Really good to see you, and thanks for having this and putting this together. I'm Allison Tierney with Kinesis, and we're a small business strategy consultant here in Portland.
Thank you so much. All right, Stedwin.
Thanks, Kara. This is Stedwin Coleman. I'm with the Big Leaf Network, serve as a revenue analyst, but I'm involved with a couple other projects as well.
Awesome. Thanks for being here. All right, Renee Fellman.
Hi, everybody. I am an executive in residence at TAO, which I love. And I've been leading turnarounds for years, and I'm hoping this is going to be an interesting and informative session.
Fantastic. All right, Paul.
Yeah, hi, Karen. Yeah, it's Paul Martin. I'm with Borderline Cybersecurity, and we are a local cybersecurity VAR and consulting firm.
And you are one of our newest members. So
I am.
Good to see you.
Thank you. Same here.
Christy Lawton.
Hi, I'm Christy. I'm the CSO for Rewire Neuro. We make software for academic research sciences.
Thanks for being here. Very cool. All right, Dan Thomas.
Yeah, so good morning, everybody. So I'm Dan Thomas. I'm with Trimble Viewpoint, and we are a software company centered around construction in project management and finance accounting software.
Very busy these days over at Viewpoint too.
Yes, it is.
I can't wait to hear what you have to say. All right, Katie.
Morning, I'm Katie Burtis, Workforce Solutions Partner with Cinder. We provide recruiting and diversity, equity, and inclusion consulting services.
Thanks for being here. Marty Gator.
You said that so tentatively. Good morning, all. I'm Marty Gator, founder and digital accessibility advocate with USBS Cloud Consulting.
Thanks for joining us from Eugene.
You bet.
All right, Adam.
Sorry about that. Hi, Adam. I'm a commercial risk advisor with Assured Partners.
Thanks so much for joining us.
No problem.
Elizabeth Cushman, Wakefield.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. My name is Elizabeth Bastian, and I work with Cushman & Wakefield here in Portland. And I work as an associate broker, and I'm excited to be here.
Fantastic. All right, Doug.
Morning, everybody. My name is Doug Utberg. I am Director of Business Development for ServerLogic. That is a Portland-based IT staffing and managed services firm. And I'm really here to engage with the Portland business community, despite the fact that we're not allowed to actually be around each other.
One day, I have hope that one day. All right.
Yes.
I will apologize in advance because I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce your name, but I'm going to go with Yehudit.
Yes. Good job.
Thank
Yes,
you.
my name is Yehudit. I'm a business development manager at Sigma Design. We're an engineering consulting firm on the other side of the river, Camas, Washington. Looking forward to, talking to you guys.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us. You're actually one of our newer members this year too. So I was excited to see someone from Sigma join up. Do you see me doing my good sales customer relations over here? This is
Good
magic.
job.
You guys think I don't pay attention? No, I'm kidding. All right, Craig Stolberg.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
I am a former CFO of Payne West Insurance with offices there in Oregon, and I'm currently a graduate student at the University of Montana. So I'm just kind of creeping on you folks.
Oh, perfect. I love it. Creep away. All right, Mark Newhausen.
Hi, I'm Mark Neuhausen. Like Renee, I'm really happy to be an TAO executive in residence. I specialize in holistic health checks for companies, and we'll ask companies a number of questions to get you thinking about things you may not be thinking about.
Fantastic. Thanks, Mark. All right, Brianne.
Hi there, Rian Griffiths-Ray. I'm a risk manager on commercial lines for Assured Partners.
Thank you for joining us. All right, we've got another one that I may not get 100% correct. It's either Ryan or Rihan. Help me.
Is that me again, Rian?
Yes, Rian. Oh, that's you. Okay, you're here twice.
Me again. Rian Griffiths-Ray, Assured Partners. Nice to meet you.
I think that might have been me the first time. I'm Brianne Runston, business development and sales at Zedra. We help U.S. companies expand internationally.
Fantastic. Thanks for being here. All right, we've got three more folks. Cecilia.
Hello, my name is Cecilia Mariani. I'm CEO at Darwoft. Darwoft is a software company based in Argentina. Now I am in Hillsborough, trying to grow my company here in Portland area. So I am here also to engage with more Portland folks and all that. So, and I am new in this organization, so very glad to be here today.
Well, welcome. Thanks for joining us. Okay, Brooke. Okay, I counted to 5. So I'll go on to Greg. Greg unmuted, but we don't hear you, Greg.
Hey, Kara, how you doing? Not at the dentist today, so I can talk.
Okay, perfect. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. Great to be here.
Let's see, Joe.
Hello. Sorry about that. I was having some audio issues, so I had to join or quit and log back on. But hi, my name is Joe Momora. I am a client services manager with Experis here in Portland.
Well, fantastic. Thanks for being here. And then last time we'll try Brooke Steely one more time. All right. If y'all want to drop your LinkedIn's in there so that everyone connect, that would be awesome. And we are going to go on to the next portion of this event where we want to thank everybody for the information that you shared prior. Filling out that survey, we know can be a little time consuming, but it's given us some really interesting information to go on to lead this. And so we're going to do a combination of a couple of tools. We've got some Canva, and we're also going to incorporate Mentimeter so that we can actually get some real-time input. So Justin, I don't know if we want to go on to the next slide. I know it's a little wonky. Well, oh, there we go. Okay. So we thought this was interesting and we wanted to show it in a pie chart. So we've got 27 folks here now. I think 37 registered, and almost everybody answered this question, which is how has shifting online affected your business? And 50%, less than 50% said no noticeable change. 11% was, not applicable. Another 11% was negatively, and almost 30% was positively. And so I'm going to pause here for a second and ask if anybody, particularly in the negatively or positively categories, wants to sort of talk about their experience.
Hey, so, oh, go ahead, Angie.
No, you go, Doug.
All right. So I was one of the people who answered negatively, and that's because I'm in business development. And so it is really, really hard to get somebody to trust you to say, hey, I'd like to do business with you if you can't actually meet, mostly because actually trying to get time to connect on Zoom is really difficult just because everybody's barraged with email messages. And so I think, there are definitely some aspects that are certainly much better, which is that, of course, right, now everybody's virtual. So that means, the world's your oyster as far as how you can bring in resources, how you can, arrange for events. There's really no limit to the types of digital events you can attend, but anything that requires a, like person-to-person human connection is very difficult to replicate digitally or virtually. I haven't figured out how to do it, but I am very open to the fact that people who are far more smart and insightful than me have figured out. And if that's the case, please, please, please do share your secret.
And that's exactly what I was going to say was that trust factor. It goes back to, sales way back in the day is face-to-face with a handshake. And it's that trust factor, I think, that from the negative side that has been kind of a struggle for me, who is normally out in a boardroom with folks selling, but now I'm having to attract them all with, lava smoke and lava lamps, right, to get their attention. But that's been probably the biggest thing.
Yeah, I agree with Doug and Angie, and I'm one of the negative folks. And like Doug, there's some positive aspects to it, but I found that it's the accountability piece that has been really lost for me. So I think there's been more interest, but not a lot of follow through, and often like just totally ghosted. And that's never really happened before after face-to-face meetings. But something about the virtual connection that doesn't put that accountability factor into the relationship.
That's really interesting to hear. I'm going to put my TAO hat on. And I love this community because like a lot of what I do is sell sponsorship and memberships. And we have our board meeting. I know, right? Doug's laughing. I'm like, this is like so relevant to my job. We have our board meeting today and are sharing our financials. And we have footnotes for where things are lower, where things are higher. And I was talking with our finance person. And I was like, I'm just going to change all 5 of the footnotes to say pandemic, pandemic. Okay, this one's fine. Pandemic, pandemic, because all of those things that you're saying are resonating and our business has done fine. But like one of it is like we misbudgeted. Well, we misbudgeted because we didn't know we would still be in this virtual world. And so we assumed different things. So anyway, Mark's typing in there that the good news out of this I've seen is virtual has less impact than I expected. Oh yeah, as face-to-face went non-existent for a while. At least we do have these moments. All right, so Justin, I think we're going to go into a word cloud next, if I remember correctly. So what tools or processes did you or your company implement that improved sales or business development? And I'm going to let everyone read this, but I am really interested in a couple. And I'll throw that out there, but I'm really interested in like the cold calling and lunch club, because I feel like cold calling is pretty standard in the past and lunch club is pretty new. So I'll pause and see. Oh, we have 2 people with their hands up. Thanks, Andre. Except I don't see anybody's hand up. Andre,
Yeah.
oh, there we go.
Yeah, I was one of the people that had my hand up, but I took it back down when we moved on to the next topic. One thing that I wanted to riff on what you were just saying is that when you're talking about selling sponsorships, yeah, I've found that sponsorships for digital events have basically zero value. I haven't yet started fighting with a sponsorship I purchased because the renewal time hasn't come up yet, but I fully intend on basically saying that I have no intention at all of renewing unless or until I get the time I paid for when we can at least have hybrid events. Because I think that's the thing, is that the engagement level with digital, with virtual events is so low that if you're a sponsor and you have to justify your sponsorship with direct sales as opposed to having deep corporate pockets where you could just write it off, the value is zero. And I think that's the nut that we really need to crack, is to figure out how do you get to where you can have a network value that is at least close to in person, just because otherwise it completely disrupts all the economics of having professional organizations.
Marty, you had your hand up, and then Katie.
Yeah, I was just going to say, from a standpoint of what I've been able to see, a couple of things. From a positive standpoint, actually, really when it comes to the digital side, I've actually seen the positive because it's more intentional when I'm talking to people. There's no broad distractions in the digital space because they're locked into the Zoom, they're locked into this digital space. It takes me back to I hate to tell people, I mean, I've been selling for so freaking long, I'm an old guy. Back to the old days of that one-on-one, sitting across from someone, having that, earning that right to advance in that whole conversation as if we're just sitting there having a conversation. I mean, if you go back to the old relationship side of why am I sitting across the table from this person? Because we've gotten so transactional in our sales process nowadays that we forgot the relationship side. And that's what I really believe that this whole pandemic has brought forward with the Zoom, with the digital space. And you get someone in that digital space, we're actually missing that point, that we can actually zoom in on people and actually talk to them. We're actually going to see what they're doing. They're actually focused. And if you can provide some value with whatever time you have in that space and earn every second that you're there, it actually provides a stronger relationship and gives more of a follow-up back and forth in that exchange of that time. That's what I've learned in just the time that we've been in this whole pandemic, which has kind of led to more follow-through, more follow-up. It's been different for me.
Interesting. Katie, you've got your hand up too.
Thanks, Kara. And thanks, Marty. I agree with that. I'm someone that started selling in COVID. So I don't have kind of the grass is greener viewpoint, but have really learned to make it work in this space. And one of the biggest things that I have relied on during this time is referrals and introductions. The cold calling has not worked. I've stopped all cold calling because no one's answering phones. And it still feels weird to like call someone on their personal cell phone, even if you have it, it feels invasive. And so the biggest thing that we've relied on is like, whether we're talking to folks that, you know, like Kara, going to you, and I'm not going to sell to you, but who do you know that might be interested that you can make some warm introductions to? And for us, we've created a lot of free virtual events at Sender that are like relative community conversations. And we've been using those lists as lead lists, as folks like as using that as the warm introduction. And so I'm hearing folks like, you know, really low attendance at virtual events. Well, what are the events that you're putting on? How relevant are they to the consumer base? And could you step out of like the norm of maybe like just pitching your event, but having some type of community conversation to bring them in to the culture has been something that's really helpful for us in the past couple of years.
I've seen you do a really good job of that. And we did another event a couple of weeks ago just for like how to network into your next like job. But one of the things that I love that the facilitator said, she's like, if you're asking people to give you referrals, like, how do you make it easy for them? And one thing that I will say, and Katie, you've done a great job of this, when you ask me to help connect you to somebody in our ecosystem, you send me exactly what I need to say. And like, then it's super easy for me because like, we're all busy, right? And so it's helpful to like, make it easy when you're asking for referrals. I'm going to ask 3 questions. If somebody has had an experience with Lunch Club that they really like, I'd love to hear about it. And then I have no idea what Gong or Aptivo even are.
So I can speak to Gong. What Gong is an AI tool that records conversations, but then you can put markers into it. You can do a lot of different analysis to it. We introduced it into our tech stack here. And as a manager, I have a team of 7 sellers. So a lot of times, and I'm on the customer side, when you're trying to be a part of all those discussions, it can be hard. And when somebody says, hey, I meant this on implementation, not that, or whatever, we have a record of it. And so it's been really good for us to really hone in on the fundamentals, and we can put markers in there. So like if we want to stress project plans or next steps that we, before you get off the call, that you have a meeting already scheduled, right? We can put markers into the tool and it will let us know that. So it's been super helpful. And the last thing that I'll add for COVID for us, I mean, we do project management and accounting software. And as you can imagine, accounting software can be super sexy and there's a lot to it. But the great thing about this is that it's really concatenated a lot of our discussions to where we can really bring down those. Instead of taking a whole day for a demo, we can do it in 2 hours, right? We're really consolidating and we're getting people on face to face that really want to hear what we have to say. And it doesn't take up a whole day. It's like, okay, I'm going to do 2 hours to this and move forward. So kind of both of those pieces there.
That is fascinating. I'm like, Justin, I may want to look at Gong since everybody in our organization has membership convos. Paige, you have your hand up, and then I'm still looking for a Lunch Club expert unless that's you.
No, unfortunately, Kara, I'm not a lunch club expert. I'm actually just as interested as you are to hear about that one. So that's what I'm going to be learning. I was going to echo the bragging on Gong. I think that has been, of all the tools that are constantly coming out for sales, Gong has been truly priceless in terms of what it does for our internal functionality, conversations from sales to engineering, getting in sync there, training and implementation. I know training programs that are being entirely built off of the transcripts and the correspondence that Gong will give you from a call. You can just copy and paste your Q&As and train your reps and train your teams, and it's awesome. It's for the virtual world. I would definitely second the vote for Gong.
Okay, we're going to call him and ask him to sponsor this community next year. Katie, you have your hand up, and I didn't know if you had an additional comment or you are our lunch club expert.
No, I want to hear about lunch club. I'll put my hand down.
I know we all want to hear. Okay, Dave Barker can speak to lunch club. But he's in a loud place. Okay, it may be worth it, Dave. Oh, Brianne, okay, go.
I'm also kind of in a loud place, so I'll go outside of where the speakers are, but I've done maybe a handful of lunch club meetings, so I wouldn't say expert, but it was really helpful. Like I came back to work in a business development sales role after being on a long maternity leave, and it was a really great way to start networking and meeting people. And because they were kind of from all over the country and not in my direct sort of sphere, it was a good place to practice and try my pitch, I guess. But then some of them have turned out to be really good partners and have connections into other markets that I was interested in going into.
Hey, Paul, can you mute yourself, please?
Thanks. But some of the other meetings I've had at Lunch Club have been interesting, but not like super useful for me in a business sense. But it is sort of, it feels like the numbers game where you're getting out there and talking and meeting people and pitching and practicing your answering questions. And that always feels like when you kind of get going with that sort of BD practice and process, that it's kind of like you're getting the wheels moving again. So I've had really good experience from it. I've not gotten any business from it, but I've made a few good connections that, are just good people to know in my ecosystem.
Yeah, I mean, I know Dave's saying in here that there's a good invite only process, and I've seen that. And he's also saying that he's had a few connections that have turned into both referrals and clients. And so I guess if you're well connected, then you can invite people. And so you're sort of building the network as you use it. I've only done it once, and I'll be honest, it's just because like I'm so zoomed out that I can't think of meeting with somebody in a different market when my whole life is right here. But okay, those are some good tools. So Justin, let's go on. Gosh, 30 minutes has gone by already. Let's go on to our next slide, because I think we're going into Mentimeter. And for those of you that have not used Mentimeter, I would highly suggest it in any kind of event, even if it's internal. And I think we're going to do a quick practice before we start like ranking some of the suggestions that came in. And so the way we've done this in the past is we ask people questions, and then we had answers, and we asked folks how those resonated with them. And so we're going to do that same sort of thing. So this will be an opportunity for you to see some of the responses. We try to consolidate them into themes. But if you can either type in the menti.com and enter the code, or hold up your phone to the QR code and go in there. And Angie's saying that she's used this to host games with prospects. We may need to hear about that, Angie, while we all get signed in.
Get off mute here. Yeah, this is actually such a good tool that I learned about a year and a half ago. And what I do with it is, first of all, I got my company to get in on it. It's not very expensive. We were able to customize it with our logo and colors, but then I started holding trivia. Instead of doing normal webinars, right, where I'm pushing my product and pushing how we can solve the world's problems, I took a step back from selling and said, people are all fatigued. I'm fatigued. I just want to have some fun. So I started hosting like trivia nights or bingos and things like that. And we do it with this application, and then we just started sending it to the masses. And then the winner would get like a, $50 gift card to Amazon or something. And it really has that on real-time engagement that you'll see here in a minute. But I think I had a lot of people, I even did like a magic show with it, because you can just get a lot of engagement. So no matter who is presenting or what your slides you're showing, they can really lock in and give their feedback and participate. So we would have Star Wars questions, and you would be amazed how quickly people would be, you know, arguing about who was right and who was wrong on the Star Wars answers. But yeah, it's a great tool.
That's because Star Wars is very strongly opinionated. Okay, so I think if you're in there, our first, that's way cool. Can I get an invite to one of those? Angie, Katie wants an invite. Our first question is going to be, where are you joining us from today? And so that's just to practice. That's the easy question. And you know, Justin, I don't think that we zoomed out far enough to let our friend from Montana select where they're calling from. So we definitely have a Portland heavy crowd. Is that right? Am I correct with that, Justin? Are we Portland centric? Justin is doing a lot of magic behind the scenes right now. Oh, 12 of us are from Portland. Not surprising. All right, everybody feel you know how to use Menti? 13. I think, Marty, I think you're our lone Eugenian today. All right, well, let's go on to the next one, because this is where we start getting into some of the meat of what you all responded.
All
So,
by myself.
Yes. Okay. These were actual questions that people sent. So it looks like referrals has been the #1 way that few have found new customers, and then events and speaking engagements, and then LinkedIn prospecting. So this is where I'm going to pause and count to my 10 and see if anybody wants to raise their hand or pop on and share that. I know that we've had Katie talk a little bit about referrals, but I think that if that's the #1 response, we can probably dig into that a little bit more.
Yeah, this is Angie. I use referrals a lot. I've been in the Pacific Northwest and selling for, you know, a long time. Just only my companies have changed, right? So for me during COVID, I had to go off of, I meet people like this, and I'm a very half Italian person where I'm all over the place. Kara, as you guys know, I'm very like a busy butterfly in person, but on a Zoom, we're well more reserved. So for me, I had to go with the people that knew me, knew my energy, knew my trust, and call them up or LinkedIn message. And that's literally how I was able to at least get meetings with people versus the cold calling.
Yeah, I'm going to have to echo Angie's sentiment, because literally, before I got plugged into some of the more established networking groups, I mean, literally, because people have gotten to know me in the near 15 years I've been in Oregon proper, just referrals. Hey, do you know so-and-so? And yeah, I know. Oh, hey, Marty, why don't I refer you to such and such? I mean, literally, Kara, that's how you and I met, was through a referral. So literally, that's how it works for me.
I can say that for us, it's also been a very active way of getting new leads. Either it's just people that we work with before that have moved to a different company, and now all of a sudden they're carrying our name and their experience with us to this new place, and so now they're bringing us into their new organization. Or it's a friend that they know. It's really word to mouth that has happened. And then through Zoom, I know I've used video messages to my contacts to re-engage with them in a different way than email, and hopefully incentivize them to, you know, engage and maybe make an introduction to another colleague in their company.
You know, that's a really interesting comment, because I just actually posted something on LinkedIn that companies are seeing transition upwards of 30% right now. So I'm going to go back to my example of our financials for our board meeting. 1, we didn't predict the pandemic for so long. 2, we didn't predict so much transition. And so when we talk about our revenue, our recurring revenue stream from a membership standpoint, that's one person that we reach out to. And I've been doing some follow-up renewals, and I probably spend 50% of my time tracking down a new primary contact and updating that in Salesforce. And so that's been an interesting, but then we do see folks go to different companies and then reach out. I don't know if any of y'all are Adam Grant fans, but his book, I just was looking at it, Give and Take, has a really interesting tip that I think is pretty relevant for the pandemic. And it's a combination of that referral and LinkedIn prospecting. He suggests going back to somebody you worked with 5 to 10 years ago and reaching out to them, because in the time that you've been gone and expanded your network, they have as well. And they may have a whole different footprint of folks that they're willing to refer you to because of something that you did 5 or 10 years ago. So just an interesting kind of concept. I have done a little bit of that over the last couple of months, and that's actually worked out pretty well. I'm curious if anyone on this call, which I'm sure this was live, can speak to events and speaking engagements and how you've turned that into sales opportunities.
I'd like to speak to that, especially when it comes to new technology, because of something that I'm doing. It's digital accessibility is not new, but the push is because of what's going on in the marketplace. So with me trying to educate people before they get hit, speaking is really important for me. So being able to be at an event, being able to talk about it, it generates interest, it generates buzz, so it helps me generate contacts, generate leads, generates prospects. So the more I talk, the more I post, the more I put information out about it, it does help.
Yeah, I know for our business, because we went from retail to business, just being on different roundtables, different conversations like this, people find out what we do and they get interested, right? And so then I get a contact, and so they're coming to me, which is awesome because I've been in outbound my whole life. So having people call me and say, "Hey, let's get together," is super cool. So, but the idea also is that, and this goes to someone else talking about events. I'm at that event because we're talking about something that's of interest to me and our company, or me personally, and so we have like-minded people are now on a conversation. So when they find out what I'm doing and they're like, "Oh, that would be interested," we've already kind of created a relationship, if you will, before we get into what happens next. So, and then if I don't come at it with an idea that that's what's going to happen, right? I'm not in there to try to get leads. I'm in there to have a conversation. Then the leads just become genuine. So.
And that definitely, you're hitting the mark on that for sure, because, you know, in sales, we're driven for, you know, get that meeting. But I think through COVID, it's reminded me to take a step back, and people are people just like me. They don't want to be sold to always. They just want to be heard, or they want to, you know, their cat's sick today, or, you know, whatever it is that they're going through, they just want to have that connection too. So I think that's also helped to change the dynamic a little bit on sales, is, you know, listening more and just being heard, letting them be heard. And then you can hit them with, you know, building that trust up and what your business can do for them.
Okay, I did my awkward count to 10. Do y'all feel weird about it? I do, but I'm leaning into my learnings. There's a robust conversation going on in the chat with Dave and Katie. Katie wants to know how you give someone a referral bonus in cash without having to handle all of the accounting. And I think that's a very valid question. And Katie, if Dave doesn't answer, maybe you can come to our finance community event next week, and the finance people can tell us all the pain that we salespeople cause them when we do things and don't think about how it has to happen operationally. Justin, let's go on to our next slide and see what people responded there. All right. What tools or processes have you implemented that did not work out or were more difficult to maintain than expected? I loved this question. I'm glad that Dave thinks that my answer about finance was the right one. I'm sure the finance folks would not agree. So we've implemented a lot of things at TAO that have seemed to be a little bit more difficult. And it looks like we have a pretty even split between CRMs and social media outreach, but the direct outreach via virtual events seems to be the most difficult to maintain than expected. So here's my awkward 10-second pause to see if somebody in that cluster wants to talk about it.
I'll talk about it because I've attended so many virtual events, and I just feel like that's not necessarily the problem, but that's what it is. You've attended so many, and trying to keep up with everyone that you meet and make those connections or whatever the case may be is very difficult because you're meeting tons of people weekly, almost, especially if you're in a sales role or a business development type of role. So I found that very difficult to try to maintain. And you would think it would be much more simple because we have our devices right here in our hands. We can just go 1, 2, 3, get it done. But when it's
all right, sweetie, you gonna be gone a while?
Yeah, so yes, it's just very difficult to do that. So I'm eager to hear from people like, what have you done to try and keep up with that? Because again, it's hard to do for me anyway. So yeah.
Yeah, I just want to add, as far as virtual events are concerned, we've had a few with various partners, and you might have a good response rate, but it seems, using WebEx, Zoom, what have you, it's much easier for somebody just to say yes and not show, and that's where we've seen a lot of, I guess, problems. People not actually showing once they've accepted and said yes, I want to join that.
I appreciate those answers. And it is, I didn't think about that, Elizabeth. Like, how do you maintain, like, we've got all of our names in this chat, so you can reach out to everybody via LinkedIn, but then what happens next? And like, do we feel met someone? I'm curious because, or I'm just like in a room full of sellers. Who would like to implementing the CRM?
What was the question again?
Who wants to speak to implementing a CRM that did not work or was more difficult to maintain than expected? Because I find that to be quite an interesting answer in a room full of folks that do business development and sales.
Hey, Kara.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll actually try to contribute something from the hinterlands here. The company I used to work for, we went on a big concerted effort to launch the CRM with all of our sales staff. And at the executive level, it was, everybody was on board. We were sold the capabilities and just how awesome this was going to be for tracking our hit ratios and whether people had enough in their pipeline and all of that. But the problem is that we bought it, if you will, without actually having engaged that sales force itself. We didn't have their buy-in prior to us making the decision. And when you had some of the heavy hitters in sales basically say, I'm not going to do that, try to make me, ultimately the whole thing fell flat on its face.
And I'll add to that. I mean, my experience with CRM is companies get one, gradually try to use it more, and then find it's really poor at like the email tickle campaigns. And pretty soon they have 3 or 4 systems in place of the one CRM that was to do everything.
That's exactly what I was going to say, Mark. I wasn't in that CRM loop, but for me, because we were going so heavy virtually and had to make that shift to virtual events, virtual meetings, virtual anythings, our CRMs became, hey, let's try this marketing tool. And then some people found that it was easier to manage their leads through that CRM, but then somehow we had to merge that with our, company-wide CRM. So yeah, it was so many different tools because we were having to shift the way we were prospecting. That was a difficult thing to maintain.
Something that I can chime in, so I can say, and I hear this, it's just not knowing the cycle how the sales cycle is going to work, what's going to happen. Something I've had to learn with mine. I've been pitched different CRMs from different people, and I keep telling them I don't know what my process is. I don't know how people are looking at what's going on with my process yet. I'm still learning. So let me find out what the cycle is, and I'll be happy to buy your system when I find out what they're doing. So to everybody's pain point, it's like getting excited about a CRM before you know what people are going to do tends to cause more problems than it's worth, because it sits there and doesn't do what you need it to do, and you're relying on and forced to use this really cool CRM that may not be as magical as you think it is. I mean, I love Salesforce. That's my favorite CRM in the world. I would love to use it now, but I have so many different engagement points with what I'm doing that I don't know if Salesforce is the right CRM for me right now.
I want to add in like my experience with the companies I worked for. CRMs are a great tool. They are excellent, but they also there's like a learning curve. Not all people are going to be able to just hop in. It's like, yeah, we got Salesforce or NetSuite or Oracle. We can just incorporate our data and just sit through and just go through and just rinse and repeat. Sometimes you have to have like a dedicated person to actually start learning it. Not all companies have that individual on staff, so they have to do like outside consulting, which means you have to like takes time to like set up meetings and discuss like what exactly you're trying to get out of that CRM, like what data you want to slice and dice. So usually just like a lag time that leads into it.
And speaking to Stedlin's point, I don't even know how myself or my team would manage our database without having that particular person in place to maintain it. So that's something that I believe helped us. But if we did not have that, I would feel exactly like how everyone else feels.
Okay, the CRM conversation with sellers continues to be alive and well during a pandemic and beyond. So we're going to file that one away. Justin, let's go to the next slide. I'm going to be mindful of everybody's time, and I know that most of us probably want to eat a little lunch. So we have some additional topics, but I feel like we should have added CRM in there. I'm curious, since the topic that seems the most interesting, and we're kind of living it right now, what are you all seeing or thinking about in your roles for alternatives to trade shows as a one-to-many approach? Because I think we've sort of touched on some of these. Like, this is a one-to-many approach for us. This is a lot of people. Email marketing is a one-to-many, but like, are you all thinking about, are your companies going back to trade shows? Are they happening? Or what are you considering in turn? Because I'd love to just get a couple of ideas out there while we have folks here, since it's an area of interest.
Oh, Angie, I think you're on mute.
I know my team has started to go out to trade shows, so it's starting back.
It's kind of so far for my experience in my team, it's kind of been a juggling of the demons. Like you can have planned for a great event. They are happening right now, but then you're working around attendance numbers. And then with flights and getting there, my team's fighting where Southwest has canceled 20,000 flights. And then with what you need to get to the event and manage event, there's supply chain operations. So it seems like the fights are being kind of attacked from a couple different angles. It's still happening. There's still a benefit there, but the fights are definitely coming from multiple directions to make it profitable these days.
And I'll speak from a commercial real estate standpoint. So I've attended a trade show, so they've been having them, but it was kind of sort of built into a conference that was commercial real estate related. So I would say whatever industry that you're probably in, if they have any organizations that's tailored specifically for that industry, and they're having conferences, what I've been seeing, they've been having trade shows at the conferences, but I've been to some, they've been going on. I'm
finding they're a little depressing compared to the past. There's way fewer exhibitors and way fewer attendees. If there's something you went to regularly, they're probably at half what they were.
we are still trying to figure out what we're doing. So our plan is to be in person. The reality is I think we just don't always officially know what is going to happen in the state. Virtual is super challenging in the sales space. Yeah, it's hard to pull folks in. I want to ask, I think we maybe have one more slide, but I am curious, like we've hit on the CRM. Allison brought up holding prospects accountable. For somebody that's seen success, like how are you holding folks accountable to get them to like have that next conversation or move the sales cycle forward? Because I'm struggling with it.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
I always have to go up back in. Sorry about that. So holding people accountable is interesting, but I'm never afraid to shy away from this. The bribing, right? Here's a $10 gift card for lunch or Grubhub if you meet with me, or here's a, whatever gift card, or we'll send you a bottle of wine or whiskey tasting, whatever it is. I'm not ashamed to say that we do that, and we are budgeting more now on that spend than before, because there's a lot of people that you have half of people say, I'll get out and meet you guys for a 10-person happy hour, sitting outside, social distanced, doing a lunch and learn kind of thing. And then you have a bunch of people that won't attend. So you have to be able to kind of accommodate everyone while still making it the most bang for your buck, but not afraid to tell people I bribe them. And they take it, right? They're at home. They're like, oh, I need those shoes for the kids, or I'd love a Grubhub sandwich today, or, something like that. So they're not afraid to pick that up too. But I hope somebody has a more professional way.
I was going to say, we've had similar success with we actually have had some events where, several events where we send wine. And that's been the question, like, how do you know people are going to show up? And we're like, well, we can't know 100% are going to be there. But that's the risk. But if nothing else, like that person is getting a couple of nice bottles of wine and maybe a meal, which you hope makes them remember you. But we've had success with getting people to show up for that. And I think somebody said earlier, having really compelling content. And I do think getting out in front of people's calendar is really critical right now. And speaking of calendars, Justin, do we have any slides left? Let's see. Oh, okay. So this was the last thing that we've entered in. Meetup, 70%. Okay, cold calling, no change. It's harder with new customers. We've seen the video. Referral and event lists. Oh, that one, walking my dog around the neighborhood, that's mine. I have actually met a few members that way in my neighborhood because my dog is really cute, but he's a total jerk when he sees other dogs. So then I have to apologize. And then when they see me without my dog, they want to talk. Cold referrals, company hosted events, the PBJ. Oh, yay. Someone put TAO in there. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
So that's it. That's the thing, is trying to find relevant content on my prospects and my customers. And so the only way I can do that is to follow you guys and see what, Portland Business Journal is amazing. That if you guys are not part of that, get on that newsletter. But even just the TAO stuff, sometimes I'm just laying in bed catching up on things. I'm like, oh, we just, you guys added a new member. And then I Google them, I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to get connected to them. So those kind of things are really helpful.
And Elizabeth dropped a book in there, Common Sense Selling. And Dave did make a good point. Portland has a bad habit of RSVPing just to get it on the calendar and then not showing up. So I was super impressed that we had so many folks here today. And we're going to keep doing the sales community. We'll be back in 2022. God willing, we will be in person. It's like my biggest hope for next year. But we have about 3.5 minutes left, and I'd love to open it up and let folks give any final thoughts or ask any questions while we've got some experts, and then get everybody out of here by 12:30.
I have a question, food for thought. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
So one of the issues I think everyone is facing is it can be hard to get responses, get people to meet, get people to return calls, all that stuff. And I think that a root cause of that problem is that we're bombarded needlessly. For example, anytime I sign up for anything, I think I must get 5 reminder emails. So, and everything has a reminder, and I'm wondering whether ultimately all of the reminders are making people feel inundated and less likely to respond. And everybody's doing it.
Speaking from an event marketing perspective, especially if you've registered for an event, if you don't send out a minimum of 2 event reminders, you're already going to only have 80% of individuals attend. If you don't send out at least 2, that's going to decrease to about 40%. So if the market didn't suggest that those reminders were required in order to increase attendance, I don't think it would happen.
I think the only way to fix this really would be a culture change. I mean, unless somehow it became a thing in the market. And one of the things about having gray hair, I'm from the world in which you make an appointment, you show up. And I don't know whether there's any way of fixing that, but I really brought it up as food for thought. I know you're right. You know, I use Calendly, and in the beginning, I didn't select send reminders to everybody, and I discovered people forgot if you didn't send them a reminder. So
From what I experienced, it seemed like there's like no penalty if you like, you RSVP, but if you don't go, it's like, well, nothing's gonna happen. I just don't show up. Normally, say if you RSVP to like a wedding, you don't show up, then the bride and groom's like, hey, you RSVP, you didn't show up. You spent money on food. That's a penalty to you. Now you feel bad. If you go to say sign up for a webinar, you don't show up. It's like, oh, sorry, you missed our webinar in email, but it's like you just throw that in your spam filter. So that's why. So that's what I've noticed.
And on some of the events I've held, we would do our shipping of the wine or anything we would be shipping to them after the event. We say there'll be a sheet for you to give us your private mailing address or whatever. So we've had a little bit of success in that regard of not having people just not show up because they were getting wine at the end. So on some of those larger giveaways, we kind of did that.
Maybe a few of us should collaborate on some kind of social guilt function for digital events.
I've also heard that there's some sort of like some number of like maybe $10 or $15 where if you require a fee to sign up, that then the attendees have skin in the game. And so they're more likely to attend. But that's a hard thing there's a fine line between getting people to attend, but then people just not wanting to pay. But I think also if they have to pay when they're signing up and they already have 50% of going, then it probably just eliminates those people that were just on the fence about it. So they have to pay for something. Even if the company covers it, it's still that mental skin in the game of I signed up, I paid, and I should show up now.
Dave apparently does that. And this is going to be, I'm going to end us with like another challenge and layer to this, because Stedwin made me think of something. You know, it's not like the wedding that you don't show up at. And for a lot of stuff like us today, we are recording this, and we have heard that the on-demand watch anywhere is appealing to some people, to a lot of people. Like, it's not appealing to me because I don't want to spend any more time in front of this computer than I have to, unless it is like for a comic book movie. But we have seen events that have had really, really low in-person attendance become our top viewed on the back end. And so then there's like no cost to attend that. So anyway, y'all, thank you so much. I'm happy to stick around for a few more minutes, but I really appreciate everybody showing up and sticking with us for an hour. I hope you learned something. You'll get a survey. Please give us feedback. If I was the worst facilitator ever, please say that so that we can get somebody else in this role. Don't tell your finance teams that I gave y'all permission to send out referral checks. Like, we'll send Paul in my direction. I do not want to have that conversation with him. And we really do look forward to seeing everybody in person at some point soon. We know it's going to happen. We really appreciate the community and everybody that's a part of it. So thank you so much. And thank you to our chairs, Andre, who had to drop off for another meeting, Angie and Paige. This would not happen without y'all. So thank you very much. And thanks everyone for filling out a survey ahead of time and engaging with us in real time while we were here.
Thank you so much for this. It's been great.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank
Nice
you.
meeting everybody.